Hi there, my name is Shaun Bindley and this is Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening is the Minister for Agriculture, Food and Regional Economics, the member for Mackay, Tim Mulherin. Tim, welcome.
Good evening.
I want to talk initially about growing up in Mackay. You're quite a large family and you were the eldest child. What do you remember about growing up in Mackay in the well, perhaps not the 50s, but in the 60s?
I was born in 57, so I'm 55 this year, and I was one of 6 kids, 5 boys and a sister. Sort of Irish Catholic upbringing. Mackay at that stage was, in the early 60s, was rural. Probably one of my vivid memories about Mackay were the bicycle racks in the centre of the main streets of town. Mackay was very flat, and of course back in those days, bicycles were the mode of transport. It's interesting, roll on 55 years and there's a resurgence of cycling in our town and right across Australia.
So you're still basing yourself in Mackay these days?
Yeah, as Minister I only get home either Thursday nights, Friday mornings. I've got a wife Erin and 3 young boys, Declan, Liam and Rory. Their ages this year will be 15, 13 and 10. So it's quite a handful, but love getting home, love being with my wife and children. I've also got my Irish mother-in-law living with us.
Oh, very nice, very nice. Well, so what was it like being the eldest of those 6 boys? You guys run around for Mackay Brothers Rugby League Club perhaps when you were a bit younger?
Oh, I played for St Mary's. I started my schooling at St Mary's from year 1 to year 4, and then from year 5 to senior, or year 12, we went into town to go to St Patrick's Christian Brothers College. Back in those days, there were only sort of small parish schools. Probably didn't have a lot of resources, but it was a good moral upbringing. You know, a lot of the lessons I learnt from them I've taken forward in my life. I don't profess to be a good Catholic, but it certainly shaped a lot of my values in life. But more importantly, my parents gave me a great value system. Both my mum and dad come from large families, so we have the big extended family, which we still gather from time to time. It's nothing for my wife and I to invite the family over and we'll have 28 for lunch or dinner, but it was a great time growing up. There wasn't a great deal of money in our family. I had a brother who was born with some medical complications, and he spent a couple of years down here in Brisbane as a baby, and my father used to fly down I think every 3 weeks to have that parental bonding with my brother. There was no such thing as patient travel subsidy schemes in those days to defray those costs. Mum had to stay at home because there's 6 of us in 7 years, so there were always little children. The age of 12 I started working. I wanted a new bike. My parents couldn't afford a bike, a brand new bike, and my aunt, who was working for a local firm, bought the bike. I didn't know at that stage, but I thought I was paying it off to Fields, but I was actually paying my auntie off. I got a paper run, the old telegraph run, and I think it was worth about $2 a week, and I built that up to about $7 or $8 a week. And my grandfather my dad's father was gravely ill at the time, and I went in to visit Pop, and he said, look, when you pay the bike off, find some other job. He didn't want me, riding around the suburban streets of Mackay, but it was good. Taught me to the value of money and hard work. It also taught me to sell things. For example, there was a fairly popular English magazine called the English Woman's Weekly, and there was a great commission on that, and I think the popular TV program book at the time was the TV Times, but there was more of an incentive to sell TV Week, and so I encouraged all my clients to make the switch, and because you had the horse sports and best bets and the sportsman, so yeah, I think within about 5 months I paid that off, and then I went and worked for a cousin whose husband had a pharmacy. So I worked every afternoon after school, right through to year 12, school holidays. That helped pay for, school books and all that sort of thing. And I think, remember my parents were celebrating their 13th or 14th wedding anniversary. So there was a little French restaurant in the arcade where one of the chemist shops my relations owned had, and so I did a deal with them. I think I was getting $4 a week working for the chemist, and I gave the owner of that $2 a week. I think I started that in March. By the 29th of September, my parents were able to go off and celebrate their marriage on behalf of myself and my brothers and sister. So yeah, we've always sort of worked well collectively together, and my parents are still alive and going well, and they provide great support to me and my other brothers and sister-in-law and brothers and sister-in-law and brother-in-law with our children, and my parents are even a great support to my mother-in-law.
I mean, everybody remains close. I mean, having that sort of upbringing when you're growing up, a lack of space, I guess. Have you found that everybody's tried to get a bit of separation from each other, or do you still maintain that same physical closeness?
Oh no, we maintain that physical closeness. Yeah. I suppose in our family, my father's cousins were always aunts and uncles. So cousins were, we distinguished cousins or relationships around how close our families were. So a third cousin is like a first cousin to me, depending on how close our families are.
Yeah. How did you see yourself? Can you remember back then, and did you have an idea of where you fancied that you might end up later in life? Did you have a plan?
I went through the Christian Brothers education system, which was probably at the time a bit like that great Australian movie, The Devil's Playground, and but it was a great education. Taught you things around social justice, citizenship education. There was a lot of politics discussed, and I always felt that I wanted to serve people. Even at school, I was tied up with the Young St Vincent de Paul Society, and there were these pensioner cottages, and we'd go around there and wash walls and wash the external walls and internal walls. Got involved in the collecting for the Cancer Fund back in the late 80s, early 90s. There was an elderly chap by the name of Michael Moon and John Horton, who Michael had the local second-hand dealer's store, and John worked for him, and they used to run the Australia Day celebrations in Mackay. There was no involvement by council. They had a group of women who used to run a hoy at the Country Women's Association under the Australian Natives Association banner, which is an old a friendly society that was established in the late 19th century, and the money that was raised was then to put on the festivities for Australia Day, where we had the street parade, public address from the mayor, and citizens receiving community awards, and then that night we'd celebrate, we'd have a recognition dinner for the community. So I've always been involved in wanting to serve people.
We're going to have to take a break. You're watching Meet the Ministers. My guest on the program this evening is the member for Mackay, Tim Mulherin. We'll be back after the break.